welcome into another episode of Restaurant Hoppen. I'm your host, Dan Hoppen, and I would say probably as recently as 5 or 6 years ago, Omaha kind of had a rather unspectacular barbecue scene, I would say. Now, there were some good places here and there, but if you wanted like great barbecue, you were going to go south to Kansas City or even further south to Texas. Maybe you go out east a little bit to Chicago. And Omaha's barbecue scene still doesn't have the stable tradition that those places do, but I think we have some standout restaurants and concepts that would fit right into any of those communities now. And the three gentlemen who are at the table with me are three people who have helped establish that over time. Please welcome to the podcast Blane Hunter, Scott Fogle, and Craig Ryon. All right, gentlemen, to start this thing off, I'm going to ask you to, one by one, introduce yourselves. What is the name of your restaurant or food truck, and what style of barbecue you serve? Craig, kick us off. Kick us off.
Yeah, I'm Craig Ryon, Sause Boss BBQ. We're just a small food truck. I say my style is actually kind of mixed. It's what's best. We do our brisket, similar Texas, stuff like that. Our pork is going to be closer to Kansas City style, a little sweet on that and everything. So we really just mix it up.
My name's Scott Fogle, and I own Mission Avenue Barbecue over in Bellevue. I'm from Austin, Texas, so my style is pretty much Texas style, but specifically more Central Texas style. A little bit of Mexican influence in it.
Perfect. I'm Blane Hunter. I'm Porky Butts BBQ. Originally from Texas as well. I cook what I love. I have a chef background, so I do a lot of chef influence stuff, but it's more Texas, Kansas City, just whatever I like to eat. So, I mean, what we cook is what we like to eat and what we think the general public's going to enjoy to eat. So we kind of mash it all together and make Omaha barbecue.
Awesome. Well, now we've made some introductions, but I think we need to start off defining what makes great barbecue. So for you guys, if you visit a barbecue restaurant, what is it about a restaurant that is going to make you go, oh, this place is doing it right?
Well, none of us probably go to barbecue restaurants.
That's a tough one, yeah.
That's tough.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
These guys eat a lot of meat, have eaten a lot of meat in their life, so they usually don't eat a lot of barbecue
for many years.
But okay, so you're at a comp. Like, what defines great barbecue to you then? Even if you're not eating it a ton yourself, like how do you know when you taste something you're just like, oh, this dude knows what he's doing when it comes to barbecue?
Well, for me, it's just kind of like you can tell how much time they've put into it. To cook meat properly, to render all the fat properly, you got to know your meats, and it's pretty obvious when you take that first bite of a rib or a bite of brisket specifically, whether or not they've been cooking for a while. You can just tell by texture. Yeah,
and that texture thing is just that finish, how that moisture level hits your mouth. I mean, that's through that process he's talking about, start to finish. And you know when you bite into a good piece of meat, a good piece of brisket that just pulls apart and has that nice rendered fat. And
even if it's not seasoned the way you like it either,
exactly.
Or it's not like your flavor profile, you can definitely tell somebody who knows to take the time and knows their meats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a texture thing. Exactly.
Okay, so I know that Scott, you are not a fan of the term pitmaster. So I want to hear you guys' opinion on that, and we need to establish what I'm calling you guys tonight, because normally I would say, oh, I've got 3 pitmasters here, but Scott does not like that term.
It's just.
So what am I calling you guys? What am I calling you guys tonight?
I just cook.
Just a cook?
I mean, if you look up my my profile on basically every social media outlet and on my all my employment applications, I'm head dishwasher at Porky Butts, so you can call me Dishy. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, you did just say you were an All-American at washing dishes.
I am an All-American at washing dishes.
That's your greatest skill, so, I mean, that's a useful skill to have as a barbecue cook.
But, I mean, pitmaster, I mean, cook, restaurateur, that's probably the better that all 3 of us are. Exactly. I mean, we all wear many hats, and I mean, I don't know what the true definition of a pitmaster is, but I think it's overused. And with all the Instagram people that are out there using it nowadays, there's a lot of pitmasters out there.
Well, it's also pretty presumptuous to think you're going to master anything, especially when you're playing with live fire all the time. I mean, the minute you get comfortable, I guess what makes a good pitmaster is knowing how to react when you set a pit on fire or something goes horribly wrong.
So like a pit reactor.
Yeah,
That's the better term.
That's just a general restaurateur. Because every single day you're getting stuff thrown at you.
Yeah,
and it's how you're going to
sometimes you go
respond.
back and you'll see like your pit's been cooking 75 degrees hot for and you don't know how long, and you gotta be able to look at that meat and go, okay, where am I? How much further along am I? And being able to identify that kind of thing. I guess that's what makes you a pit master, but it's just a term that a lot of people have been chasing for a long time, and it's not as glamorous as people think it is at all. I mean, it's dirty. It's a dirty job.
Okay, so tell me, people think it's glamorous. Pull back the curtain. Tell us what it's really like.
Oh, gosh.
Long hours, always on your feet, lifting heavy stuff. I mean,
Hot. It's hot. Dirty.
the most, I don't want to say this and offend anybody, but
Just go for it. Let's offend some people.
we get attacked more on social media than anybody else, and it just, we put so much love and effort into it, and we're not going to, every piece of meat that we produce is not going to be perfect, and we know that, and we do have bad pieces of meat, and we all cook.
You just kind of have to get what you're given, you got to deal with.
Yeah, and I mean,
sometimes.
just that is the biggest challenge, I think, as a pit master / restaurateur or barbecue owner, because there's a lot of people out there just, attacking, and I think
a lot
that,
of armchair quarterbacks.
yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I get a lot of guys. You get the guys that come in and say, "Oh, when I retire, I want to do this." And I look at them and I'm like, "You are crazy!" Like,
keep working.
or just retire.
Yeah.
Because this is not retirement. Not a good plan. Not a good retirement plan.
But no, I mean, it's obviously a love, because we all three,
Yeah.
we get up every day. I mean, work 16, 17 hours a day, and you go in and
You have to love it.
you have to love it. I mean, we all do. We sit here and like any career, there's challenges, but in barbecue, it's tough. It's a lot of hours and it's a lot of hard work, but it's a passion. And if you don't have the passion, I wouldn't jump into it.
That's for sure.
The food's almost the easy part.
Yeah, honestly.
So there are a lot of different styles of barbecue, and each style of barbecue has certain characteristics, but I feel like even within those styles, each restaurateur, pitmaster, whatever we want to call it, has his own kind of barbecue thumbprint or fingerprint, like his own sauce, his own rub, his own approach when it comes to, I was going to say cooking times and temps, but we're going to go into why those aren't really a thing and they don't really exist. But I mean, are you smoking with the fat cap up or down? Are you finishing your ribs in foil? Like, there's so many different techniques out there. How did you guys each find like your barbecue voice?
Trial and error for me. I mean, I've been cooking since I was a little kid, went to culinary school, like I said. Started barbecuing as a kid, and then I get those questions all the time because we teach a lot of classes, and in classes and questions, they ask me like, what time should we finish? What time should the brisket be done, or how long does it take to cook a brisket, or should I cook a fat side? But all that's determined by what you're cooking on, if you're cooking it whole, how you're trimming it, if you're using just salt and pepper, if I'm using sugar. And there's a lot of variables that move that range and change how you cook meat, and I think that's cooking meat.
I guarantee we all three do it differently.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I do it differently based on sometimes on what I'm cooking and where I'm cooking. Like in competition, I'm cooking on an offset, or at the restaurant, I'm cooking. And it also depends on how much meat is in the smoker.
Right.
And the more meat you put in there, the more moisture there's in there. And that changes, the moisture level changes, and what the moisture level is in your wood. If that changes there's so many variables that you can't just say, at this time I take it off, or this color I take it off, or this moisture content, or this rendered fat. So there's so many variables that you can't really.
Well, you can, but then you live in the mediocrity world.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, to answer your question is, we all do different things.
Yeah, but you got to treat every piece of meat as its own piece of meat when it comes down to it, because no two are the same. It's not like we just set a timer and say, all right, well, it's time to pull those off now,
I will never forget it. When you first came on my podcast for the first time, you said something that like totally changed the way I think about it. No, it's not inappropriate, but you're like, no two humans are the same.
No.
Like if you cooked two of us, we would cook very different.
No,
yeah, that sounds really weird, but think about it in those terms. Like, no two cows or two pigs have the same like structure, have the same body shape, have the same fat content. Like, if you just use a uniform method, you are going to get varying levels of quality.
100%.
That's why the thermometer lies to you as well.
And then the other thing too is like when I was selecting Snickerer Farms, the beef I use is how it's transported and how that, you know, the cattle is transported and how it's treated in that transportation makes it different than in the meat. So like they'll transport it a day early, let it settle, calm down before they actually slaughter the animal. Mm-hmm. They make it feel like it's living a perfect life before it ends up going over to the buffet. But no, it's less stress, and it's just every little variable changes. So you got to make sure you're changing all the time when you're cooking. You can't just be like, at 1 o'clock yesterday, I did the brisket at this or the chicken at this or the, you know, everything changes daily.
It does. Just the other night, I had some, and I still don't know why, but they took 3 hours longer than they should have, you know, but they just were not feeling right. And it was the day the front rolled in. Yep. It was the day that the weather changed, and I was like, it might have been a pressure thing. I'm not sure yet, but now, I'll tell you what, my night was 3 hours longer than it should have been.
Yeah.
You just said something interesting there. You said that's why the meat thermometer lies. So many people use a meat thermometer and just trust that implicitly. And I see, Craig, you're shaking your head too. Guys, go into that. How does the meat thermometer lie?
Well, I mean, every piece of meat's different. You've got a different fat content, and it renders at a different rate. And sometimes that meat thermometer, it can. People ask me all the time, what do you pull your brisket at? Honestly,
when it's done.
I have no idea. We do everything by look and feel. Mm-hmm. You know, if it's not feeling right, and that's why my night was 3 hours. That thermometer could have been telling me that they were done, but they didn't feel done to me. So I wasn't going to leave until they were, you know. Mm-hmm.
And that's what I always say when we hire new pitmasters, that they always say, you know, do we get a thermometer? I said, you have 10 of them right here. You got to touch it and feel it, and that's how, I mean, we feel our briskets.
You got to look at it and treat each one the same. They're not all the same.
I think that kind of plays into something that I wanted to talk about, just developing the feel. Because I remember even a couple of years ago, I would watch like Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives or other Food Network shows, and the guy would be interviewing a barbecue restaurateur, and he'd say, okay, how long is the brisket going on? And he'd be like, oh, anywhere between 11 and 14 hours. And I was just like, what kind of answer is that? That's a 3-hour difference. Like, that makes no sense. But it's what you guys are talking about right here. It could depend on the weather. It could depend on the humidity. It could depend on the size of the animal. It could depend on what they're smoking. Are they serving, you know, a buffet that day, or are they working in their restaurant? Like, it does vary so much. So how do you develop that feel?
Time.
It's been
repetition.
years, and cooking hundreds of thousands of pounds of brisket.
Yeah, over 12,000 briskets.
Yeah.
Like, it took me a while, though. I remember the learning process. It was frustrating. But then it was like one day a light bulb went off, and I'm like, this is it. You know, I don't know how to explain it, but it was frustrating. It takes a long. But it's always nice when you're playing with somebody else's money, though.
So you remember that moment exactly?
Yeah,
though.
I rember because
what was it like? What happened,
you know?
or what was it like for you?
Well, I was working for an absolute perfectionist too. I mean, his name's Miguel Vidal. He owns Valentina's in Austin, Texas, and one of the fantastic restaurants.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
It's unreal. If you're ever in Austin, Texas, it is a must. But like he kept going, listo, you know, done, and I kept feeling it going, just could not get it down. And finally one day he's like, yeah, they're perfect. And I was like, okay, that's it. And ever since that day, I've been just chasing that perfect brisket, you know. And you don't get it every time. I mean, it's almost impossible to get it every time.
We were talking about today.
I
had 2 ribs that weren't finishing, and I was like, I got to get going. I got to start slicing. And I may have pulled them too early. So somebody, if they had a rib today that was a little tighter than normal, then
hopefully you don't have to hear about it on social media.
Yeah, I know.
You know?
But
yeah, it's just over and over and over and over doing the same thing. Like I have a very specific process how I do everything down from trimming to seasoning. And I could be standing there having a full-on conversation with you, but if you really watch what I'm doing, everything is a step, and it is always the same every single time, and that's how I train my people too. So that way, the goal is, no matter who cooks it, you don't know. Like, we all do it the exact same way every time.
And then if you do competition, it's even
it's
more refined. It's a whole nother level.
We'll let him do that.
That attention to detail is even more refined.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
But
totally different style of cooking.
I would love to hear more about, like, do you guys, and obviously Scott, you just kind of told your moment, but Blane and Craig, do you remember like when you mastered the feel? Like I almost imagine it being like the day that Spider-Man got bit by the spider, and then he like wakes up the next morning and he's got like this whole new power set, and he's just like, whoa, what do I even do with this? Do you guys remember what that was like when you were just like, oh, I've got it now?
On me, the restaurant side, it was probably about 3 months in when we moved over to the Snickeroo Farms. I was struggling a little bit, and I think you wrote a review talking about my struggles. And
this is a long time ago. I've learned the error of my ways.
No, and I deserved it too, because I wasn't. I mean, at the first 3 months we were open, we were struggling a little bit, and we were cooking too much. And scaling in a restaurant is hard. I mean, I was cooking 2 or 3 briskets all the time, but when you got to cook 50 a day and you got to have them out exactly when you open, ready to roll, it's hard. And it was probably about 3 months in, and we moved over to the butcher paper, and it just one day honestly, I overcooked them, I thought, and then I walked up to him and I realized that I wasn't cooking them long enough the whole time in that butcher paper, and that was the moment. Just like he said, it was.
I think
no one taught me. I thought I effed
the biggest mistake with brisket, though, is I think that most people aren't cooking them long enough.
Exactly. Yeah,
because they're undercooking them.
Yeah,
that's probably the biggest mistake, and the thermometer's telling them that it's done.
Craig, do you remember mastering, or not mastering? No one masters it, but do you remember?
I'm not sure if mastered 100% completely now. Like you're saying,
right.
Every piece is different. Every piece is going to act a little different. But no, I don't remember the exact point of or when. It's kind of just growing or whatever. I just haven't been doing it as long as these guys and stuff. But
Craig came out of the womb.
There, so.
Came out of the womb cooking briskets.
No, not in Iowa. I didn't do that like you guys.
So we've kind of talked about how the feel, very hard to master. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of repetition. How do you try and teach that to someone else? I know part of it, you just have to do it over and over again. You have to figure it out yourself. But you also, as you're training employees and you're training other people, you have to get them to a point where you're at least getting them down the path where you guys went down. How do you try and teach that to someone?
Yeah, it's a challenge, and it's what we face every day. But I mean, I think I told you in your last episode you had me on, and I had a gentleman I didn't think was going to make it, and he was struggling a lot, and it just one day I had him filling. He messed up 14 briskets one day that I throw in the trash. That was maybe one of the worst days ever in my. Yeah, it was very
learning on somebody else's dollar.
Yeah,
someone else's dime.
And I held some restraint that day, but I mean, since then he's been amazing, and I didn't think he was gonna. I went to the manager and said he's not gonna make it, and 2 weeks later one day he just cooked these most perfect brisket I've ever had, and I'm like, okay, maybe he's gonna make it. And then 2 days later it was over and over, and he's been with me for 2 years now, and he's just kicking butt, and he's a great pitmaster. Or what do we call him? What are we calling him? I don't even know anymore. I don't want to get backhanded with you.
No, it's not that. No, I've got a specific way that I train people. I start them on the block because I want them slicing the brisket and serving it and seeing that fat cap.
Yeah.
And seeing it makes a lot more sense because a brisket's 2 muscles that come together and they run different grains. I teach them the block first and how to serve, and then I move them over to trimming them. And that's where the whole process starts with me. And I've had pretty good success with that. Mm-hmm. I've got someone right now that I'm training to hopefully take my place soon. So, be the new face.
Craig, I know on the food truck, you've got it a little different. I don't know if you're doing all the meats yourself, but are you?
Yeah, I'm 100% it.
Okay.
It's exactly. I'm doing the trimming. I'm doing the cooking or whatever and stuff like that. So
it's fun, isn't it?
Exactly. And a lot of times I'll be doing the slicing on the truck and stuff like that. So. Yeah, so it's just training myself.
Yeah.
But I imagine, it would be hard to hand that off to someone. I mean, you guys are talking about how difficult it is.
When I'm on the block, I'm picking my stuff apart left and right.
Yeah.
Very difficult and very hard. When I first started, I had a buddy who was helping me and stuff like that, and we had a person come up who does a lot of barbecue in the area and stuff like that, eat us, and he sliced the stuff all wrong and everything. And then, of course, it comes down to, like, looking at I did it and everything. And I just constantly always gut that with because I knew it was just not right or whatever the way he did that. But
yeah, no, I to this day, there's certain days I still check the cameras to make sure because I can watch every step they're doing. It's hard to walk away, but you have to. I mean, because at the end of the day, if you work 7 days a week, 17 hours a day, my wife would be really rich. That insurance will finally kick in.
And ultimately, it's you guys' names who are going to be associated 100%. With that. People know the names. They know your names. They don't know your other sous chefs or other cooks that you have. So they're going to come back and they're not going to say, oh, you know, Johnny messed up that brisket. They're going to say, man, Blane screwed that up. Porky Butts is weak.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
How frustrating is that? Like, especially like the one-time review. And I'll totally own to it. Like the first time I went to Porky Butts, it was probably a week or two after it opened in the restaurant. And I've learned a lot since then. I always go at least twice to a place before I talk about it now. But I mean, how frustrating is that, you guys? Like, because you've mentioned how hard it is, and you mentioned that you've admitted that you make mistakes. To know that someone might be judging your entire career and how much you put into this based off one bad brisket, like that's just got to be tough to internalize.
Yeah, no, it's hard. I mean, it was the hardest thing for me to probably cope with at the beginning. It was because you take everything to heart and you just get defensive automatically as a human. But you know that you're not perfect, and you have people working that are probably not as passionate as you are, and they're not perfect. So the people make mistakes. And also there's people, I mean, everybody likes something different. I mean, it's no different than I go to his, I don't like eating at my place, but I'll go to his place and I'll have a brisket or I'll go
love his grits.
Yeah, I mean, as we all were talking about it, we all love each other's sides, but it's hard to take, and I hate when people, and this week I got in trouble on social media because I commented on a post. I don't know if any of you guys seen it, but I hate when people will Porky Butts is the best, or then someone will jump in and say, no, Mission Avenue is better, or this is better, or this is better. I hate the tagging all the time. That drives me more nuts than the actual telling me my brisket sucks when I know that it wasn't that good that day.
I think they assume that we all hate each other, you know, and it's like,
we all talk daily.
We all talk.
Yeah, it's the most challenging business I've ever. I mean, I worked in the restaurant business.
And also, I mean, I think we've proved that we put out a good product and we care. So the people that go straight to social media to just rip you apart just tells you that's probably not a customer you want anyways. But because if they had just come to us, you know, we're going to fix that. We're going to, oh my God, we know what we're looking at. We'll fix that for you right now. It's our name that's on it, you know, of course.
And there's not a day that goes by that we don't make a mistake of something.
Right,
I mean, we're all human, and we're all.
When you got 20 people standing in line, something's going to slip through every now and again.
Yeah,
it's going to happen, but all of us will fix it.
But I do love feedback. I mean, I encourage it, and I even give. There's people that that hasn't been happy with me that I've actually given my personal cell phone number, and then they started as hating Porky Butts, and now they come to the Porky Butts all the time, and they call me and they text me and tell me. And we have changed because of customer reviews, and we're always adapting. And I mean, I'm on, I don't know, 4th or 5th pork product that since I started the restaurant 4 years ago. So we will change and adapt as things change and people's palates
you
change.
have to adapt.
Yeah, you don't change.
This industry is moving at light speed too. It really is. It's a totally different industry down in Texas, but it's moving this way. Like, you can't get away with just a meat board and potato salad and beans and coleslaw anymore. And that's not going to fly.
And the Omaha barbecue palate, I think, is getting a little more refined, and they know what good barbecue is now.
They're starting to realize there's different regions, and different styles.
So. How have you seen that evolve? You say the barbecue palate is becoming more refined. How do you see that?
Just some of the comments and people, I mean, some of the feedback I've gotten from guys and women on social media, some of the stuff you can tell. Like when I first, it was like, your brisket's dry. But now they'll actually break it down and tell you what they thought of the brisket or how they thought. I mean, and some of it's like, I'm like, this person knows what they're talking about. And
you can definitely tell who knows.
They're right. Yeah, they're right. I mean, it was off that day.
Mm-hmm. And that happens.
Yeah.
Okay. You brought up something that we need to talk about tonight, Scott. And I know it's something that you're very passionate about. And that's just like, this happens with all types of food, but I feel it especially in barbecue. People feel like they have to like plant their flag on their favorite restaurant.
That's the way to say
and all the other ones suck.
Right or die.
So if I love Mission Avenue, that's my place.
Right.
And I don't like Porky Butts. I don't like Jay's Smokehouse. I don't like Sauce Bosses. I don't like any of those places. And you had a Facebook post recently that expressed this feeling. You said, it's okay to support someone who's doing something similar to you. It won't hurt your business. If anything, it'll help you both. Competition happens at the bottom. Collaboration happens at the top.
Sure.
I would love for you to unpack that quote a little bit and explain what inspired you to post it.
Well, social media around here has been quite a bit different than anything that I've been used to dealing with. Is
it weird? Is it different here than in Texas?
Totally different market.
How?
I just think that barbecue has been a big thing in Texas a lot longer.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I think that your average customer understands what goes into it a little more. And it's not a big percentage up here. It's just the ones that there's some loud ones. They make a lot of noise. And we've been beaten up. We've been beaten up a little bit, but so have these guys. Like when we talk, he'll send me one. He's like, somebody posted that they love my place way better than Porky Butts, and he sends me a screenshot. I
think it's funny. I love it.
And we laugh about it behind the scenes, but it's also frustrating. It's like he does a good job. I do a good job. We support each other. That's what barbecue's about. It's about community.
And barbecue is very subjective, so you can. I mean,
it is.
You can. I mean,
I think
what I like and what he likes might be totally different.
Yeah, and I think people are so passionate about it because everybody can relate to doing it in their backyard. And no matter what style you grew up with, the one thing that it has in common, all styles, is about friends and family and get-togethers. And it's kind of gotten more competitive, and I think people lose sight of that aspect of it, and that's the whole reason I got into it. It's like a brotherhood down in Texas. Like, we all know and support each other. I mean, you've got the people that fight in Texas are the families, and that's where it belongs.
Well, I remember you came on my podcast. I want to say it was 2 months ago, Scott, so somewhere around there, or maybe it was a little bit longer. Regardless, you said that you were kind of lamenting that you missed that from Texas because you just moved from Texas late last year.
In October.
And you just
it's been a year.
Just that. Oh wow! Congratulations. That barbecue scene was just so much closer, and there was more collaboration between restaurants, and it was more like a family. And you're just like, man, I miss that here. But I feel like,
we're starting to build it.
I think we can see it even right here.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, this wasn't even my idea to do this podcast. It was Blane. He texted me and he was like, when are we doing a live barbecue podcast? I want to get these guys together and talk barbecue. And you're texting each other. Are you starting to see? Obviously, it's not going to be the same as it was in Texas.
You start somewhere.
Are you starting to see that build up a little bit between the restaurants and concepts here?
That's what we're trying to accomplish here, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I've definitely, since the first day I opened, I mean, I've talked to James quite a bit. I talked from Jay Smokehouse, and I started talking to Scott, and I've known Craig
James
for many years.
3 or 4 times a week,
Yeah, so we're slowly, it's starting to grow, and I'd love to, get more traction. And because, I want to make a barbecue. I want you to say, oh, there's Kansas City, there's Texas, and there's Omaha. And I think I said that the first time I was on your show.
We've got a lot of mutual friends in Texas. He knows a lot of the same guys I do, the guys I'm talking about. It really is. It's like a big fraternity of like-minded idiots that want to play with fire and meat in July when it's 100 degrees outside.
So ideal state, what would you guys like? What is having like a barbecue family among restaurateurs? What does that look like? Ideal state, where would you like to get to?
Just more where it's more of a community, rather than the rivalry.
Yeah, I mean, like he was having trouble with some pork a couple weeks ago, and I said, hey, if you need pork, just come grab it from the restaurant. Yeah. Or if you need an extra smoker and you're down and you need to borrow one. I want to get to the point that we can all just lean on each other, because barbecue is a really hard business, and we need all of us to be together to make this community a great barbecue community, I think.
Especially to make it grow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
What do you think, Craig?
Yeah. I think they pretty much hit on the head.
You are a man of many words, my friend.
I know,
he never shuts up when we're talking on the phone.
It is, though. Blane's helped us so much. I didn't come from a barbecue background like these guys did and stuff like that. I started doing little competition stuff, things like that. Had a lot of people back helping with that. Other competition people stuff. Just kind of grew into it. Started doing a little more, went to culinary school, stuff like that, to kind of do my leap that way and kind of learn a little more. And like I said, since Blane's been such great help and everything with questions and supply things and just stuff like that. So just that support amongst, and it's not like we're two different spectrums. It'd be a little food truck, it's not like we're competing on each other or anything. We're just there supporting each other and just helping us. And stuff. So
I think Omaha's a big enough community to support a bunch of them. We can take on more barbecue restaurants.
For sure.
I think. And so there's no reason to, for us to hate each other or beat up on each other. We should all work together and produce a region of the United States barbecue.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we've got two members of this panel here who went to culinary school, and I'm very interested in that, because I don't think. That's something that a lot of people would think, like, oh, Italian, French dining, barbecue restaurant is not something I think a lot of people think of when they think of culinary school. Did you you're both shaking your heads.
It's becoming more predominant, though. There's more of it.
What did you guys gain from that, and would you recommend it to someone who is, hey, I want to get into barbecue professionally? Is culinary school a path that makes sense?
Is anybody here from Metro?
I mean, I think that's a chef question in general. People say, do you start at the dishwasher and work your way up, or do you go to culinary school? For me, it was a humongous midlife crisis, like career change. I think I was almost 40 when I did this, so I didn't have time to work my way up through the dishwasher and stuff like that. So culinary school taught me a lot of the basics, a lot of the handling stuff, a lot of terms, technology, like just stuff like that I didn't necessarily have time to learn working my way up and that. So kind of give me that little faster push, I guess, and stuff. So
I'd honestly, if I could do it all over again, I would probably just go work in the industry, take some select classes, and get a business degree, because the business degree is the part that you're never taught in culinary school, how to operate the business. And that's the part I didn't know, and that's the most important part, because anybody can, I mean, that creative part you can find deep inside you just by going and working with other people. I mean, just traveling around the world and working in restaurants and working under chefs. I think you get so much more than going to culinary school, where culinary school, they basically teach you to make one dish perfectly and inefficiently and basically everything you don't want in a restaurant.
I'll tell you what, you're not going to like the pay either coming out of culinary.
Yeah, exactly.
At all.
But yeah, no, I would, if I had to do it all over again, I think I would choose that path and go get a business degree and then kind of work my way into restaurants. Or just
what?
I was going to say something, but my wife's going to listen to it.
Well, we'll leave it at that. We don't want any angry wives listening to this. Okay. What is the most important lesson you've learned about barbecue that's allowed you to be successful in your career?
For me, it was just starting meat. Learning how to purchase meat was probably the biggest thing for me in competition and in restaurant. It's just, I thought you just grab a brisket, you throw in a smoker, but it's truly, I mean, the age of the meat, the quality of the meat, how it was processed. There's so many levels that you need to learn. I think in selecting, like especially in the competition, selecting meat is very, very important. So starting with a good piece of meat, I think, and operating your whatever your vessel of cooking is, your smoker.
So I'm sure you do a lot of research, like going into it, trying to identify. But is some of that just trial and error, just buying different types of briskets and just going at it and saying, I like this one better than this one?
Well, and just meeting like I met. When I moved over to Snake River Farms, I met with the owner and toured his ranch with him, and he talked me through his whole family and multi-generations. They're celebrating 55 years today, actually.
Wow.
And just learning from him and just and getting in touch with people. I'm going out and meeting ranchers and people that are actually raising cattle, and then go to a processing plant. I mean, I know it's hard to get in them, but I've toured many processing plants. Some of them I didn't want to go back, but
right.
But just learning the meat and learning the different, the grades, and learning, fat structure and muscle striations or fat striations in the muscle. I mean, that's very important. And that's kind of me purchasing meat has been kind of the biggest thing in our growth as a company.
What about you, Scott?
Technique and just doing everything the same way. Attention to detail.
Attention to detail is very important.
You got to have it in barbecue, or you're just, it's easy to be mediocre. It's tough to get to that other level, but when I got into this, I left a very good job in commercial construction, and I just couldn't do it anymore. But I handpicked who I went to work for. I knew his reputation, and he expected perfection. And I think working with him for 3 years gave me the greatest foundation. And like he goes back to that culinary school. Find some place like that if you're interested. Find a guy like that.
It's a master of his craft.
Yeah, find somebody who is. And at that time, one of my closest friends at the time was working for Aaron Franklin, and he was his head pitmaster. And I went to work for the other guy. I didn't even tell him. He got mad at me. And I was like, you guys are already number one. I'm one of the up-and-coming guy. And we were on the Texas Monthly Top 50 list within a year. So, but yeah, that's what it is doing the same thing over and over the same way. And that doesn't mean you can't experiment and have fun. We do that all the time.
Yeah.
But
we were talking about different things we want to try in the future.
Yeah, I got a whole
Yeah.
bag of stuff that if I can just keep our doors open and keep us moving our regular menu out, if I can ever get some good help in there and things start running smoothly, then it's time to play and we can have some fun.
You were posting about brisket breakfast tacos.
Oh, yeah, that's a staple, and that's
the
the place I worked. That's what they were known for.
I traveled to this place to get the The brisket breakfast taco is the most amazing thing.
Yeah, I mean, it brought Guy Fieri there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's...
Tortilla will change your life.
Yeah.
I'm not even joking.
Everything's from scratch, even the tortilla. Like, I don't know that I can pull that one off here, but yeah, we're known for our breakfast tacos there, so I would love to add a breakfast, absolutely. We're talking about that right now, so.
Love it. Craig, what's been the most important lesson you've learned, you think?
Probably honestly patience. It is that. I mean, like they were saying, it's all exactly. You know, the meat selection is very important, but yeah, you can't rush it. You just got to take that time. Like we were saying, would you say 3 hours, something extra the other day?
Yeah, our days
like
are
that. Like
incredibly long. Like
the meat's gonna be done when it's done, so you just
It tells
patience
you.
till it gets there. So.
So Blane and Craig, I know you guys have done plenty of barbecue competitions, and Scott, feel free to chime in on this.
Hammer us down.
I've done 2. I've always been on the production side of things.
And Blane, I know we've talked about this before, but I'd love to bring it to this new audience. Like, when people walk into Porky Butts, they see all kinds of ribbons and trophies on the walls, like all kinds of competition awards. And clearly, you know, you've done very, very well in those. But that's a completely different animal from serving food in the restaurant. And obviously, you've lived this life too, Craig. Serving, 6 plates to judges is completely different than pumping out enough plates to satisfy a line at an event. Yeah. Can you guys talk about that a little bit? Just the differences in competition cooking versus serving the public?
Yeah, I mean, it's totally different. I'm serving basically 6 bites to a judge, and I'm putting as much flavor and making it as pretty as I can to just basically, I want it when they touches their tongue to go, they look and say, wow. Where in a restaurant you're trying to put out, I mean, I don't want it to sound bad, but you're trying to put out a very consistent quality, high quality product, in a mass scale, basically, like we do at Porky Butts. But yeah, it's 2 different animals, and the competition world, it's so crazy, but it's just so addictive, and I just got tied up in it, and I love it, but I hate it. I mean, every time I start prepping for a contest, I mean, my kitchen manager's back there. She's seen me trim chicken thousands of times and complaining and cussing the whole time. But then I go to the contest, get an award, and come home, and I'm the happiest man until the next contest.
Is it just the high of winning that makes it addictive?
I don't know if it's the high. It's just the competitive. I mean, everybody's competitive. And
the atmosphere of those things is a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's just
fun.
And once you've been on top, we were the #1 team in the world, and it was like once you hit that pinnacle, it's like, how do I get there again? I'm sure that's how a meth person feels. They get there once, they want to go again. I mean, I would never know, but. Yeah, no, it's just, it's addictive, and I love it. I love it and I hate it. I hate prepping for it, and I hate getting ready for it, but when I get there, it's like, I'm sure, like practicing for a football game, and when you get there, it's all game.
Mm-hmm. You can't sit down and eat a half pound of competition brisket, though. It'll make you sick.
Yeah, and your kidneys are probably shut down.
Yeah, probably.
We're very MSG friendly in the competition world.
Very.
Greg, what are some of the main differences for you, especially serving on a food truck? That's a little bit different than a restaurant. The differences between competition and serving the public.
No, it's the same things. I mean, if there's a food truck versus a restaurant, that's going to be a lot the same. But
everything's always breaking.
Yeah, it's moving around, slopping everywhere.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times things have just ended up on the floor, like a whole 8 quart of sauce or whatever. Tie down right. But yeah, like it's the prepping, just the crazy amount of what we do to prep, like these things, chicken thighs and stuff. I mean,
and no
space into it. There was
2 hours to do 12 chicken thighs.
All the fat off of it.
Yeah.
And, when we take a brisket, and we'll trim a brisket a little bit to do it to the restaurant and stuff like that. But the brisket, when you trim it for a competition, you don't even recognize it as a brisket necessarily anymore and stuff like that. So
yeah,
it's so much different.
It's so overdone. I mean, it's just. I wish they would get rid of some like the garnish rule in competition barbecue. Eliminate that. Eliminate some of the appearance and make it more about the cooking, because now it's just it's a pretty sauce competition. And what we do in the restaurant and what we do in the competition side are 2 different animals. And I have tried to infuse some of that with like my ribs. I mean, I use the same rub on my ribs that I use in competition. I use the same sauce. I mean, it's a similar rib, but it just didn't have all the internal injections and phosphates and things that I put inside of it. Scott,
you said you've done a couple barbecue
I've done
competitions. 2. Yeah, but you haven't caught the fever like
no, I
these
get
guys
it,
necessarily have.
but I was when I did those too. I was already in the barbecue industry, and when you're in the barbecue industry, you don't get time for that. Like not at my level, you don't. So I'm still cooking every single thing, every piece of meat that comes out of that place. I'm pretty much cooking right now, so I don't have time to do it.
Yeah.
But
I was working in corporate America when I was competing heavily, and I was traveling. I did 41 contests one year, and I traveled basically every single weekend for the year. And I went from coast to coast. So, I mean, like he said, there's no way you could operate a restaurant and do that. And if you are, you're not going to be there. So,
right.
And that's hard now, is because I've started competing a little bit more because I wanted to. My ultimate goal is to win the Jack Daniel's World Championship, because that's the last thing in the feather of the KCBS cooks, and I haven't won that yet. And I've been trying to get to it, and I needed to win. So this last 2 months, I had to win a contest to qualify for it, and I did it like 3 weeks or 4 weeks ago, and I qualified for the Jack. And so if I win that, you might never see me cook a competition again. At least that's what I tell my wife. And you were saying about walking in the restaurant. I had a comment this week on Facebook asking about, you have all those trophies. Isn't it about being better than somebody else? I display those trophies because I'm proud, and I'm proud of Nebraska. Because, I mean, it's not very often, there's only been 38 world champion American Royal winners in the history of the world, and one of them is here in Omaha. And I do that because I want the city to be proud of seeing those trophies, and I want them to be able to share it and say, hey, go to Omaha, there's American Royal winner. And that's the reason I do. I don't do it because I think I'm better than I'm Scott, or I'm better than somebody else.
You should be proud.
And I just want
If the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, they're not putting that trophy in a broom closet.
Better get a receiver.
Yeah. That's leaning away from where we want to go. But I do want to touch on social media a little bit more, because there's an elephant in the room, especially when it comes to barbecue. And some of the most negative comments that I've seen about restaurants come when you guys sell out.
Oh, gosh.
And I get it.
That's some of our worst reviews.
On one hand, I can understand, I can sympathize with those people, not their actions. I can understand with their feelings a little bit, because there have been times where I'm like, I've been thinking about it all day, and I'm just like, I'm going and I'm getting brisket at Porky Butts, or I'm getting ribs tonight. Like, I'm so excited. And then you see that social media post, and it's like, oh, we're sold out. And I'm just like, no. My whole day is just like, oh no, I was looking forward to this thing, and I can even get other meats, but just when you're looking forward to it. So I can sympathize a little bit with that. But barbecue is so much different than really any other style of cooking, because you can't just create something that quickly. Like you guys have talked about, it takes hours and hours and hours. Can you explain why sellouts happen and why people just need to chill the heck out?
Well, our quick cook stuff is 4 hours.
I mean,
so
if you're not selling out, that means you're not doing it right. That's the main thing, because I mean, we have to predict within 48 hours of like what our sales are going to be. And we obviously we don't want to sell. We want to. I mean, we're in the business of making money, so we want to sell as much as we can. And it hurts when we sell really early in the day.
Yeah,
but we have par levels, and we have to cook them based on what we think is going to be the right number. And we're wrong sometimes. And
it's hard being new, because those aren't established for me yet, too.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm riding a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Like the other day, we sold it at 3. I'm not trying to sell it by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but I had my 4th customer ordered 10 pounds of brisket and 10 pounds of pork, straight up.
And
I'm going to sell it. I'm sorry. But I wish you had called me the day before, and I would have done extra for you, and it didn't come out of my inventory. But right then and there, I knew that we were going to be screwed for dinner, and there were some unhappy people, and you just apologize and say, we'll do better. We'll try to put more on tomorrow. And then you put more on tomorrow, and then you're a ghost town.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, what am I going to do with these 12 racks of ribs I got left? Well, let's see.
And then, it's us on Friday and Saturdays. We're loading every single inch on that smoker as we possibly can. And we're going to run out on Friday and Saturday. We don't even post anymore because we don't want the negativity online.
Right.
So we just wait and take it in the face. And people get every single time. And I'll tell you right now, we would do beef ribs more often, but that's probably the worst one. Because
such a bad
if I do 42 beef ribs or 50 beef ribs, whoever that 50 person is, he is going to just let me have it and call me every name in the book at 11:15 in the morning.
We had somebody get really upset because we were out of mac and cheese at almost 7:30 Saturday night.
Yeah.
like really upset. They left over mac and cheese. They didn't want to try anything else.
And it's unfortunate because that people took time out of their day to drive to your restaurant. And that some people we have people that travel from South Dakota, and I've had people come all the way from Kearney and get there and they have no burn-ins. And then, you feel terrible because you want them to have it. But at the same time, we want to make the freshest product daily.
Right.
And
if we're selling out, that we're making everything ready in for tomorrow. So it's as fresh as it gets. So we're not passing yesterday's stuff off. But also, I'd say use the online ordering. I don't know how yours. I mean, if the way we operate our online ordering, if you get it in, it's yours. If we're selling out, we still got yours. We account for it. So if you are driving 30 minutes over to see us, get online, and we do our best to keep it up to date with what's still available too. We can do it a day ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, we actually have, you can schedule an order, I think, 30 days in advance.
Yeah.
30 days in advance, you can schedule an order for a pickup time, and you'll have that order. So if you're coming to Omaha and you're going to eat at 7:30 at Porky Butts at one of those later times, you can schedule. You can call and head and schedule that order.
With us, yeah.
So that just being a little more prepared. I know it's harder and it's probably inconvenience, but that way you guarantee you get what you actually want.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of those beef ribs, we've got a group of dudes at work who go out for lunch every Wednesday, and there was a day where you announced, we're going to have beef ribs tomorrow. So the group text is just popping off, like, okay, we're going to Porky Butts, and we normally meet in like the break room and then leave around noon. And they're like, okay, we'll leave at noon tomorrow and go to Porky Butts. And I was like, no, guys, we're leaving at 10:45. We're getting in line, so we are there at 11 because these things will sell out. And if I have this in my brain that I'm getting it and I don't get it, my productivity the rest of the day is not going to be good. So
I'm surprised you have my cell phone.
I don't like to abuse my power, Blane, but I'm keeping that in mind for next time. I will be abusing that power going forward. What do you guys think is the biggest misconception that the public has about barbecue?
Oh, I think this is going to be 3 different.
That's why I'm interested to hear it.
Easy.
Go ahead, Craig.
It's easy that anybody can do it. That it's just, they don't realize the amount of time and everything it takes. I think that it's just, we just don't do anything. We're just sitting around drinking beer or something like that. I don't know. While we're, just drinking beer, making some barbecue, I guess. And it's
glamorous.
not that. So exactly.
Not glamorous.
Scott?
That we're printing money.
Yeah.
We are not printing money. In fact, I don't know about you. Our loss leader is brisket. Brisket's
really,
brisket's rough, and that's at $32 a pound. Brisket is rough. People don't understand that brisket. You start with
the
the
yield
14,
on
the
yield on it's terrible. I mean, we were just talking about that today because my burn-ins the yield in them are just keep going down and down with basically the higher fat content I use.
Which means the better they are.
Yeah, the better they are. So
the more you're going to lose.
Yeah, no, that's probably the biggest. I mean, people freak out on pricing, and you got to remember that you're taking something, we're cooking it for 20 hours, we're paying an employee to monitor that, take it off, hold it.
We start with a good product, too.
Yeah, and we start with good products. I mean, you take all that into effect, and then you'll have someone come in and say, well, I got a Jimmy John's the other day, and I only paid $12 for it. And I'm like, Jimmy John's didn't cook that ham that was on there.
You had some high schoolers slapping some cold cuts in between bread.
Yeah, you start with a 12-pound brisket, you're going to end up with a six pounds maybe at the end.
Yeah,
and that's after you've trimmed a couple of pounds off. I mean, you pay for that, and it's expensive.
That's probably one of the biggest misconceptions.
Yeah, people think, oh my God, you make $32 a pound, you're making a ton of money. Not on that.
Yeah. Have you tried our turkey?
Yes. Pulled pork. Our pulled pork is fantastic.
That's what when I won the American Royal, the first trophy I ever won was brisket trophy, and a friend of mine, Darren Worth from Iowa Smoky D's, is one of my best friends, and he's like, the first thing I'm going to tell you before you put that in your case at the restaurant, he goes, take that brisket off and put a pork. You won the pork. He goes, because you don't want them buying brisket.
Right.
But we all want to feature brisket because that's the premier meat, and that's the hardest to cook. So
if you can't do it in Austin, you're not going to be there.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about barbecue innovation, because at the heart of barbecue, it's just seasoning and then smoking and knowing how to cook it, how to get that feel. But you guys all have done some innovating and experimenting too. I mean, Porky Butts has all kinds of specials. You've done a smoked pork loin French dip. You've done the pork banh mi. You do pastrami burn ends.
It's the pork me, actually.
They don't know. If I just say the pork me, they don't know what it is.
My wife hates it every time I say
okay.
it, so I try to plug it every time.
Just the pork me. It is an excellent sandwich.
Yeah, it's actually really good.
Sauce Boss is, I mean, you guys have had all kinds of specials. You've done brisket ramen, tri-tip tamales, a pork and waffles that I very much want to see come back.
Yeah, that waffle idea was a great idea.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. It was bad.
And Mission Avenue, you've got the tacos, which aren't that super innovation, especially coming from Texas, but you don't see it much here. You've also done barbecue nachos. You've done barbecue Frito pie. What makes barbecue so fun to innovate with and create new dishes for you guys?
For me, it's just trying to figure out a way I can eat it again.
So explain why to everyone.
Well, I mean, we're around it so much. It's a heavy meat. Like when I taste my briskets, which I try to do every morning. I taste it, take a few bites, I spit it in the trash can.
Exact same thing.
It's turkey I can do every day. Turkey, and I can eat the jalapeno sausage. Those are my go-tos. But yeah, you got to get creative to get me to eat it anymore. It's just such a heavy meat, and I mean,
it's very rich, and
it's very rich.
It sticks to the bones, and I just think we've been around it for so long, and you're smelling it, and you're touching it and feeling it, and I mean. Everyone thinks I'm crazy, but every morning I walk in, I take a little piece of brisket fat and I taste it to see how the smoker was running all night.
Right. You can totally tell.
You can totally tell right away. And I do that every morning, and the pitmasters look at me like I'm crazy. Like I just threw a chunk of fat in my mouth. But you just get it's so you've eaten it for so long, and then with the competitions for me, it's just been my life for so long that I'd rather.
Plus, we
have
all
salad.
like to cook, so it's fun to play around with different stuff and see what we can do.
And we're chefs by trade, so I mean, it's only natural for you to start. When you're doing the fusion barbecue, and barbecue just mashes with everything so easily. I mean, we got a fun one coming up in 2 weeks. That it's a brisket bao bun that we've been testing. It's coming out. I think it's next week, and it's really good.
I'm gonna be texting you now that I know I can.
So yeah, no, we always playing, and then. I have a lot of influence. So a lot of my kitchen guys are from Mexico and Honduras. So on Tuesdays, I let them they're always coming up with the Tuesday special.
That's really fun. That's my influence as well. Being from Texas, that style of cooking is just.
And they love mashing barbecue with.
Yeah.
I mean, we do it every day because we have a kitchen meal, and it's today I had it was a braised rib and then like a guajillo sauce over like a Mexican spaghetti, and it was the most unbelievable thing I've ever had.
Wow.
But you get down into South America, that's where live fire came from.
Yep.
Cooking with live fire. There's a lot of stuff going on. Barbecue's traditional. Texas barbecue's getting big in Mexico now.
Yeah.
There's a few places popping up. But yeah, it's a great fusion. That's my favorite.
And I love getting feedback from people. I mean, there's something that you guys love or something that we did in the past, and if you say you want to have it again, or if you want to see a mashup of something, I'm always open. Throw something message on Facebook, or you can.
Craig, going through your Instagram, it is just like all kinds of just wild, but not in a bad way. Like, I don't think that they're like, they all look very good, but lots of wild different dishes. Like, just picking a couple to talk about tonight, I was just like, man, I got a whole treasure trove to choose from here. Where does your innovation come from? Because you're constantly coming up with new stuff.
It's just trying stuff. It's just seeing what's going on in the food world in general and stuff like that, and then inserting barbecue into it and stuff. Or how can I... we've done like a banh mi too. I mean, you're working with like pulled pork base-ish kind of or whatever. But then it's like, well, why don't we take this and throw it in taco though instead? Get rid of some bread and bring the flavors out, I guess, and stuff. So it's just seeing what you can do with it and where you go.
I mean, basically, we are displaying with an oven. That's all we're doing.
It is.
Yeah.
Anything you can do in an oven.
Now you're making it seem simple.
Yeah, I was going to say, come on, man. You guys spent 50 minutes telling us how hard it is, and we're just playing with an oven. That's it.
We've done some killers. Like, we've even done some killer desserts on the pit. Like,
oh, yeah.
Chocolate chip cookies on the pit are great if you do them right.
One of the best desserts I've ever had is you've been to Little Miss Barbecue in Arizona.
I have not.
He does a smoked pecan pie. That's probably it's
nice.
stupid good.
I think that's in there.
Yeah.
You've done that too?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, there are pies in there.
You were talking about his Instagram feed. You should see my phone feed because he always I'm thinking about doing this. He sends me pictures all the time.
Miguel used to make French bread from scratch right there in the barbecue trailer and throw it in the front of there, and just it'd be perfect every time. Like, I can't do that.
How important are sides when it comes to barbecue?
think more and more every year. I think they're starting to get some recognition.
Yeah.
You can't sleep on sides anymore.
Yeah, in the beginning it was just very basic sides, and we started off with trying to be a little more creative, but then with our volume, it's just been so hard to mass produce some of them. And I told him, we've been running numbers because we want to take a couple off and just to update it and bring something new in. And we run the numbers, and I told him I was thinking about taking my grits off. And
Don't do it.
He was like, I thought he was going to club me.
Came after you with the butcher's knife, yeah.
Don't do it.
But yeah, no, we're trying to freshen up because you got to nowadays in the barbecue world. It's not just potato salad and
Mustard potato salad out of a tub does not cut it anymore.
I should go back to it because I had a gentleman one time. He was probably mid-80s, and he came in and he goes, "Son, you have the best barbecue, but boy, your potato salad is absolute dog shit." And he goes, "I can show you how to make potato salad," because ours is it's on the verge of chefy. I mean, it's got some mustard powder and tarragon, and it has a lot of, and we use a sweet pickle, and it's totally different than your traditional potato salad. And it's 50-50. 50% of the people love it, and 50% absolutely want to stab me because they hate it. And it's like, I tell my wife, I was like, should I? She's like, no, because I love it. I think it's great, and it's almost got like a horseradishy tarragon flavor to it, and it's good. But yeah, there's people on both sides on that one. But
the same way. My beans are like that. My beans, there's nothing sweet about them, and there's some people that want to just stab me for that. They want the sweet beans.
But I grew up in Texas on
the pintos.
The pintos, and I just, when I go to your place, I love that. That's probably one of my faves.
Don't worry, our beans are plain sweet.
Yeah. You talk about you got your side dish.
What?
Come on, don't act like you don't know.
We haven't been doing cheesy
dirty corn.
Oh, dirty corn.
Come on, man.
It's just mock chow.
It's so good.
It is. So.
Okay, what is it?
It is actually called mock. I can't pronounce it. I guess French mock chow or whatever. It's basically corn with peppers, and then we use our barbecue seasoning versus a Creole seasoning and stuff like that, and butter in it. But yeah, it's
very good. It's just a little different. You're still getting corn, and I like it a lot.
But then we started doing the street corn cold. That's been a big hit during when it was hot.
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
I love it.
When
mayonnaise and everything refreshing, and it's the lime.
Back in Texas, we would do a lot of pickling with, like we would do pineapple, but we'd pickle it with fresh jalapeno, so it was like a spicy pineapple. That stuff paired great with brisket. We would do, what else would we do? Strawberry with Thai basil, then we make ice cream out of it afterwards too. And
that acid works great.
Anything fatty, when you see like the heavy vinegar, like we've got a cucumber salad on it. Our slaw is not mayonnaise based; it's vinegar based. There's science behind that. It's to cut the fattiness that you're going to inherently have in brisket and barbecue meats, and it really works.
Something that I was so excited about when I showed up tonight and I saw the food that you guys had chosen to serve was that we had pulled jackfruit represented.
Oh, here we go.
Because I told you, I did the Instagram deep dive, and in February 2001, Sause Bosses ran a Lent special with jackfruit, and I talked to you beforehand, and you were like, yep, I got jackfruit. I'm here to prove that this is barbecue.
Right.
So, I mean, obviously, I know Craig's answer to this. You guys, can you have barbecue without meat?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, what else are we talking about? Like, other than jackfruit? Jackfruit's a popular one.
I've done cauliflower.
Yeah,
I think
smoked
last year during Lent, I
cauliflower.
did smoked cauliflower tacos, and I've done tofu burnt ends before.
Ooh,
were they good?
But yeah, I mean, it wasn't bad. I mean, it's still a little textury, just goofy. I'm not a big tofu fan and stuff, but I mean, it takes on the flavor. It's there, and it's got that kind of texture to it. So, would I prefer a regular burnt end myself personally? Yes, but for those people that opt for that lifestyle and stuff like that.
You don't probably want to have barbecue guys talking about vegan food.
Right.
Okay, yeah. Well, let's move on before we get anybody in trouble. All right.
Running diets and vegan food are not our forte.
Only when chased.
Only when chased.
As we kind of wind down here, and we're about to get into the live Q&A section here, so people start thinking about your questions if you have any. I want to talk about the future of barbecue. Like, what is the next wave of barbecue that's coming in you guys' minds? Like, what's the next cut, the next style, the next dish that you think in 3 years that's going to be the hot thing that everybody's talking about?
I think fusion in general has been just
fusion.
like it's
going to get higher and higher end.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot more on the coast and in Texas. There's a lot more fusion going on. There's a guy that's in Seguin, Texas, Burnt Bean, that does an amazing job. And
he's the first. No, he was just up for the James Beard.
Yeah, he was nominated for James Beard this year in Texas, and he was a finalist because of barbecue. Yeah, you don't see that every day. No, and his stuff he's doing barbacoa, and he's doing a lot of. He's a Hispanic gentleman. He does amazing fusion. His barbecue is some of the best I've ever had.
You've got a guy that I used to work with at Valentina's also, who has gone on. Have you seen K&G's? It's just popping up. He's just got on Daniel Vaughn's radar. He's from Egypt.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and he's mixing a lot of Egyptian flavors with like traditional Texas, and I haven't had it, but I'll tell you what, it looks really good.
Yeah,
like it'll make me eat barbecue again, so that makes me excited.
I mean, every culture does some type of live fire cooking, and I think now you're starting to mash it up with, and I think people are venturing out a little more too now. It's not as just we want traditional brisket. I think they want something different. I think we slowly are probably going to introduce it into Omaha. But
I'd love to get more into I was getting into the live fire stuff before I went, and also I'd love to get more into that. But right now I feel like I'm kind of basic, back doing the basic stuff again.
You got
if you're basic,
8 foot by 4 foot.
Basic is awesome.
Yeah. You got an 8 foot by 4 foot spot in the back of your restaurant.
I got on the side.
I bought this giant rotisserie. My wife has been mad ever since I bought it. It's my backyard. I've been wanting to cook on it so bad.
We better hope your wife doesn't listen.
Oh
to
God,
this. She's not going to be happy with you.
I got an auction addiction that. I love buying. I have more pits than a human should own.
Craig, what do you think we're going to be talking about barbecue-wise in 3 or 5 years?
It's going to be the fusion. I think there's always going to be like the basic. It's always going to be the brisket. It's always going to be that. But it's going to be that fusion, what we're mixing up with, and possibly, like he was saying, other cultural bring-ins and,
I think
and stuff like that.
Live fire. You're going to see more live fire stuff going on.
Yeah, the live fire thing has gotten, especially down in Texas. we're at San Antonio Rodeo. There's a huge,
I had a Peruvian guy that worked with us at Treaty Oak, and that's why I brought him on. He was the live fire guy.
You think we'll start seeing more goat and sheep up here yet, or?
Yeah, truly, another thing I was going to say is that with some of the prices in beef, and now that you got the Prop 12 in California, which is increasing the price of pork, I think you're going to move over to some new proteins that have not been cooked as much in traditional barbecue restaurants, just because we need to make money and we need to keep the doors open. So we got to find ways to, get people through. And I think it'll be fun. It's just different types of, proteins that you typically haven't seen in barbecue restaurants that are fun to cook, and just, venture out a little bit. And
like what?
I've cooked bison, and I've cooked. We've served duck at the restaurant.
Quail was a big one back in Texas. We cooked quail all the time. That was fantastic.
You weren't there for leap year when I did the smoked hoppers. I did smoked frog legs.
No, I should have.
I did it at one time only on leap year.
Dang, that would have been awesome.
It was my leap year special.
Well, if you ever want to run it again, you can do some like restaurant hop and promo. See, there you go. I'll promote it.
Only if you hop around with your little shorts on.
Okay, we're ending the podcast on that. Seriously, guys, thank you so much for taking the time and for coming on and chatting, for bringing awesome food tonight. And I'm being completely serious. Like, yeah, we're not talking about Omaha right now like we talk about Texas or North Carolina or Memphis or Kansas City or anything like that. But you got something?
I was going to say, I don't know if you guys seen this past year. There was an article written, and it was based on like between competition and restaurants and new restaurants popping up. Omaha was the 8th barbecue market in the United States of America.
Okay,
and
let's
go.
It
was not even on the radar a few years ago. And that was it's changing. Yeah. My social media guy updates me like every day. But yeah, no, it's changing, and we keep saying, it's not Texas or it's not, but we're right there. We're right on the cusp of St. Louis, and we're gonna jump those guys pretty soon, I think.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. It's you guys and people like you who are driving that movement and who are just raising everything up. And I think everybody who's here has tasted it. Anyone who's listening or watching this, get out to these guys' restaurants or to the food truck. They are putting out some fantastic product. Thank you so much, guys, for coming and doing this tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
And Omaha, as always, thanks for eating with us.